All right, everybody, we're ready to get started. Again, last time, this is Dave Putt with MBO Partners. We're here to talk about 5 ways to simplify your independent business process. This webinar today was sponsored by our partners and friends at the Training Associates. Most of the people on the call today are as a result of that organization, so we're going to tailor the material primarily towards trainers. I do want to thank those who have joined the webinar promptly. Somebody put a couple of jokes out there, but it's always funny how people do tend to trickle in as you go along, and you don't want to keep people waiting on the webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right in. Again, my name is Dave Putt. Not the most flattering picture of me in the world, but I'm the VP of Client and Consultant Services for MBO Partners. We'll have a brief commercial at the end when we're gathering up some questions to answer if you have any, and just about what MBO Partners does and how we do it. Just quickly, we are the leading provider of enterprise solutions for independent contractor engagement. Our mission really is to make it safe and easy for independent consultants, trainers, contractors like yourselves to work with your clients. Just a few housekeeping items for the webinar today. There's a little box in the middle of your webinar controls that maximizes it to full screen. To get the best view of the slides and the material, you might want to click on that so that you can see all the information on the slides. There's also a chat box that we're gathering up questions. There are a few hundred people registered for today's webinar, so we're not going to open the phone lines for the webinar. We are going to take questions exclusively through the chat box. So if you have them, please throw them up there, and we'll gather them up at the end and try and consolidate them and answer them as best we can. 3 major topics on the agenda today. We're going to give you a little bit of background on independent contractors and the future of work. MBO conducts a study annually on independent work, which includes everything from consultants, trainers, developers, anybody that works on an independent or freelance basis. We try to do a survey each year on their impact in the economy. And it's now, that study's been published a number of times by outlets like Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazine, Wall Street Journal. So the information we'll give you here is really stemming from that study. Then we're going to dive into the 5 ways to help you simplify your business process. Some of these are very tactical, relating to independent consultants and contractors and trainers like yourselves. And then at the end, again, a brief commercial on MBO while we consolidate our questions for the Q&A period. One thing before we get started, I did, and some of you will notice that I stalked you on LinkedIn. What I did was I did try to get some profiles of people attending the webinar today, so I had some idea of the audience I was talking to. And what's really interesting is it spans the gamut of the types of independents that we see within our study, which go from people who've been doing it for years, operate independently, have their own corporation, maybe even have multiple employees that work for them, clear through to folks that only do consulting or training as a moonlight or side venture. So they're, the folks on this webinar today, I'm guessing, probably span that entire gamut, which include maybe even people who've not yet gone out and done an independent or freelance engagement, but are considering it. So I'll try and make sure the material covers that entire gamut, from people who've been doing it, tried and true for many years, and to those who are just putting their toe in the water. So back to the individual economy in our study. What the real key is that our study bears out is that most people will not be earning their living in a true employer-employee relationship in the future, and that modality is heading for the scrap heap. What we're seeing through the study is a quickly growing economy that is based on individuals working as freelancers, independent consultants, or as small businesses, and less so being tied to traditional employment that my parents were used to, cradle-to-grave employment and benefits stemming from a single employer. Our study indicates, and this has been consistent throughout the last couple of years, that it points to an economy where 50% of the workforce will have spent some time as an independent contractor. Now, that may be, again, as a moonlighter, having a full-time job and doing some moonlight work, or doing it as a vocation. But at some point, two of us are in a room together. One of us will have been an independent contractor or will be an independent contractor. Self-employment is here to stay. Of the people that we surveyed, and we'll get into a few of those numbers here in a minute, 77% are committed to remaining independent, with 63% being standalone, and 14% of those wanting to even build and grow an independent business with other individuals working for them. And only about 14% wanted to return to traditional employment. This bucks, I think, the common notion that people become independent only because they're looking for a full-time job and do independent or consulting work as a bridge. That we find that most people through the study prefer it, who are the ones that are doing it, prefer to work that way. And some additional evidence of this shift. Last year there were 17.7 million independent workers, which we're projecting to be more than 24 million forecasted in 2018. So that's a significant growth, about 1 million people per year. We have a study coming out in a few weeks, which is the 2014. These numbers are from 2013. And we're currently finishing up the survey for 2014, which will be our 4th year, and to look for additional trends that are happening within the workforce of independent workers. And also, where the money comes from is shifting. This slide's a little misleading, so I need you to look closely at it. There's really $1.17 trillion of independent work going through the economy. So that's what our addition is to the gross national product. About 60% of that comes from within your metro area. So these, put yourself as a first person in this slide. You can, if you're an independent worker, 60% of the income you earn is likely coming from a company that you do business with within your own metro area. I'm here in the Washington, D.C. area, and we are lousy with lots of independent contractors and consultants and freelance workers that primarily get most of their income from this area. Now, the unique thing about the population on the phone today, and what I noticed from your LinkedIn profiles, is that many of you do in fact travel for training events that you do not within your own metro area, but within other metro areas. So what then happens, you go into the green area where some of your income comes from clients outside the metro area, whether you're actually traveling to those areas or conducting training for companies outside that area. So for example, what you would be in that green would be if you worked for, let's say, a contract for Microsoft, but you're in Albuquerque. That would be, even if you do that within your own town, the money is still coming from, Washington State. 294 billion from outside of your state, and 43 billion from outside the U.S. So we're also seeing, obviously, and we hear about all the time, service work being provided not only within our own country but outside the country as well. Finally, the Staffing Industry Analyst, which is a think tank, an organization primarily studying the contingent workforce across America, which includes temp labor, consulting, independent contracting, saw a 30% increase in payments to independent consultants from 2011 to 12. So further evidence that there's a growth and an expansion in the contract workforce, primarily in independent consultancy and independent freelance workers. So the real challenges for those of you who are on the phone, and probably the reason you joined the webinar today, is what are the challenges of working independently? So if the economy is driving people to work as independent or freelancers, and then also individuals are choosing to operate that way because they don't like the full-time nature of work, how do you operate? Do you set up an LLC, an S-Corp? How do you handle things like tax benefits? How do I do write-offs and things like that? How do I handle both the regular benefits that I used to get through full-time employment, like health insurance, 401k, retirement savings? Do those matters become more complex if I'm an independent? And obviously the effect of ACA on that, both in a positive and negative way, affect if you're an independent worker or not. Also, how do I become a vendor to clients? Do I need business insurances, which we'll talk about in a bit? And also, how do I establish a financial track record so that I look and talk, walk and talk like a business to my clients and not an employee or a temp labor worker? How do I handle cash flow? How do I budget or fund for projects while I'm waiting for cash flow from my clients' payments? Can I build teams, and can I fund those teams if I hire additional people? And through all that, how do I do it in a manner that keeps me from being audited by the IRS or Department of Labor? Finally, how do I administer my business? This is real blocking and tackling. Do I negotiate my own contracts, or do I hire attorneys to do so? How do I do the billing and collection and taxes? All this stuff on Saturday mornings that, people who would prefer to be working or billing hours end up doing work that is not their, they're not their primary knowledge base. And then how do I manage my business expenses, both billable and non-billable expenses? How do I make sure that I'm not spending too much for my business, and how do I get the write-offs that I'm really looking for through the business? So that kind of tees up what we're going to talk about today. Now, this is not going to be a comprehensive discussion of everything that you need to know to run a business, but it's some pointers to areas that will help you at least maybe cut some hours out, ways that you can sort of get yourself ready for contracting if you've not done it before, and also give you some other tips on things that we've seen. And I'm trying to tie it to how you folks work as independent contractors. Sorry, I just had a small slide show issue. Let me get back to my slide. Sorry, bear with me just for a sec. All right, sorry about that. Hopefully you're back on track. Every webinar that I've ever been to has one little technical glitch, and we got ours out of the way. So how you handle contracts and statements of work. These are the basic constructs for doing businesses between companies, as everybody knows here. First of all, if you're not familiar with the basic terms of working in contracts, it's probably worth going out and finding a glossary of terms because they're really meaningful to you. Now, those of us who are old like me, we've been around them for a while, and we're quite familiar with terms like indemnity, warranty, refund, repayment, net terms, and things like that. But essentially, before you get into having to evaluate contracts, familiarize yourself with the terms in contracts and even some of the pitfalls. There's lots of articles out on the internet you can find about briefing yourself on how to read contracts. Also have a standard process for yourself about how you'll review it and negotiate it. If you have an attorney friend or you have an attorney that you use, have them on hand before you actually get a contract that you have to negotiate. What I find is if you're eager to start on work, you tend to short-circuit the contracting process because you're anxious to get started. And if you get a contract on Thursday and you start on Monday, you really want to not be in a position where you're accepting terms in a contract that you really probably shouldn't be accepting. Finally, having some sort of a standard a statement of work template that you can use for your clients. Now, those of you who worked through and have done work with TTA, you know that you work through a tool called TTA Connect, which does a lot of, first of all, the contracting has been set up through that portal, and you've probably signed some sort of a contract already with TTA. And you also know the work, bookings that you get for your training assignments come through TTA Connect. So some of that standard statement of work terminology is already baked into their technology, so you don't have to worry about it as much with an engagement you take through TTA. However, if you have clients outside of TTA, it would be a good idea for you to have a statement of work that you have. And the thing that's really important for trainers is the little things that go into a statement of work. Clarity on the materials that you're providing as part of the training, who's doing the preparation of those materials and the printing and the delivery, any technology you're bringing, both if you're delivering the training on site or if it's through a web tool like we're using today, even little things like projection units and things, have those ironed out and put into your standard template so that when you have a client, you kind of know what you're delivering, your customer knows what you're delivering, and there's no disagreement when you show up and there's not technology provided, or you've brought your own projection unit and they've already rented one. So just the little things, especially in training engagements, will help you in terms of your statement of work. Again, MBO has our own statement of work templates that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But if you have your own Google machine, you can go out and find a template. There's lots of them out there on the internet you can find and download for free. Time tracking and invoicing. There's lots of software out there to help you track time and invoicing. By the way, we have got a question or a number of people asking if we'll send the slides. Yeah, please don't try and cut and paste them or anything. We're going to send you copies of the slides and also have a recording of today's webinar for you to listen to. Not sure why anyone would want to hear my voice again for an hour, but we'll have the copies of the slides for you. So on time and time tracking, very important, especially in training, because you're doing multiple engagements frequently. Although some folks on this call I know are consultants as well as trainers, always important to keep track of your hours, which clients you're spending them with. There's lots of time tracking tools out there, things like Replicon, Toggle, others that are just online tools, some of which are even free, that you can use to help track your time. On billing, know your customers' billing policies. Again, TTA has them well spelled out on how you get paid through TTA and how invoicing happens. But some of your clients you're sending invoices to. And from my knowledge of our clients, sometimes they make it really difficult for you to submit invoices. You have to put them into tools. You have to do them on certain schedules. If you don't get them in, the invoices will sit and wait for 30 days. So be very clear on knowing your client's billing policies, and the bigger the client, the more complex the billing structure sometimes can be. Always include information on your invoice so that when you send the invoice to your customer, whenever there's a question or a dispute about it, it's very clear what that invoice is for. Obviously, name and contact information, the date, put a date on the invoice. Believe me, I've seen invoices without dates, so that's really hard to track, obviously. The billing period. Even if you're doing a fixed price type of arrangement, like you're teaching one class and you're charging a flat fee for it, it's important to put whatever period of performance that's going to go along with, so you know when the services were provided. Develop an invoice number. If there's a client reference number that either you've created or they have for themselves, include that on there. What services were rendered, rate and fee, total due. So some of that is pretty obvious, I think, that needs to go into invoices. But the bottom line is the more information you include with your invoice, the more likely it is to be paid, and the easier you can handle any types of disputes that go along with an invoice. Maximizing your business expenses. Our service really is all about helping people maximize the amount of business that they're able to get, while minimizing the amount of taxes they have to pay for it. And so, the question you have to ask yourself is, are you able to maximize deductions? The biggest complaint I hear from independents is it seems like it's a lot of work for just a little bit of deduction. But like anything, if you develop a process to do it and you know some of the rules around it, you can really get some cash in your pocket that you wouldn't otherwise have by maximizing your deductions. Any accountant will tell you, keep accurate records and receipts. Typically, anytime you have an expenditure over $75, you're going to need a receipt for that in order to write it off. Even under $75, you're often required to have a receipt for certain types of expenses. Our folks here know those rules very well, so would your accountant typically, and they're pretty evident to some degree on the IRS website. But make sure you do, in fact, keep your audit records and your receipts to it as much as you're able to. There are online portals to help you with accounting strategies, which we'll go into here in a minute. I have a list of ones that you can look at that will help you kind of capture your expenses, take pictures of your receipts and store them. So there's tools like that that will help you do that. Business insurance coverage, really overlooked item for many people who become independent consultants. And frequently for those of us who provide services, it's the biggest expenditure that we have in our investment in our business is in business insurance. Now, I'm sure that many of you on the phone today don't have any business insurance whatsoever. And I'm not going to try and talk you into going and buying it if you don't wish to. However, it's probably an important investment if you do things like travel, if you go on-site with your clients, if you especially do education or training in areas that have some degree of risk or liability. It's a good idea for you to look at the business insurances that are available to you. I'll go through them very quickly. General liability helps you with things that are practical. You know, if you have accidents, if you get, you get attacked, if there's physical damage, property damage, medical liability, things like that. General liability will help you with that type of coverage. Conversely, professional liability is errors and omissions. It's not only if you screw up, it's if you are perceived to have screwed up. So that insurance will help you in the event that there's any dispute about the work that you are delivering. In some cases, again, some of the trainers that I've talked to through MBO, they do some really important stuff. They're doing weapons training, for military installations here in the DC area. They're doing training in financial investments, in derivatives and things like that. So if their training is not spot on, or if it's misused or misguided, bad things happen. So professional liability insurance helps you in the event some bad things happen relative to the services you're providing. Again, that applies if you're a trainer. It also applies if you're doing other types of consulting or strategy work or IT work, consulting with your clients. Fidelity and crime bond are about if your equipment's stolen, if you're perceived to have taken equipment. It basically, if there's different ways that they characterize these fidelity bonding, but basically, if theft is involved or considered to be involved, that insurance will help protect you. Finally, workers' comp. I'm guessing many people on the call today don't carry workers' comp. You may not be required to by your state, but it's a good idea for you to have it even if you're not required to carry it. And some of your clients will require you to have it even if the state itself doesn't require you to get workers' comp insurance. For the type of work that most trainers do, it's not terribly expensive to get. It's less than 1% of your billings, but at the same time, it gives you a world of coverage in the event you have an accident for yourself. By the way, we do have a question about insurance I'm going to throw out really quickly. What happens when your clients are asking for higher levels of insurance that you can't currently cover? That's a really good question, and we get that a lot. I mean, some clients, especially very large ones, require very high levels of professional liability, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. I've even seen as high as 10 million of professional liability. Aggregate insurance for general liability as high as $5 million as well. And for individuals like you, that's an out-of-pocket expenditure north of $5,000 a year, maybe as high as $10,000 to $15,000 depending on your discipline. So there's a couple ways to handle it. The quick sales pitch from MBO is we pay for it for you when you join MBO. So I'll get that out of the way quickly. You're automatically covered when you join MBO for those insurance levels, and we have very high levels of insurance for the folks that use MBO. What happens, you can negotiate that for the person asking the question. We find, depending on the types of work that you do, our clients or our independents are amenable to reducing their insurance if they have a justifiable reason to reduce it. For example, we work with some manufacturing companies and they require certain levels of insurance for general liability, assuming people will go onto construction sites or into energy plants and things like that. So those insurances obviously aren't required if you're showing up to do a one-week training session in their corporate office. So the client will frequently reduce their insurance requirements because you're not going into those high-risk situations. So for the person asking a question, first of all, ask your client to reduce their insurance requirements, but have a justifiable reason for them to reduce it. The second option is to have them cover that insurance for you. In some of these cases, they can provide you air cover on insurance and make you an additionally insured so that the client's covered and they're covering your activities as well. They'd have to have a trust level with you, that you're going to do a good job for them. But frequently they will do that if you ask. So getting back to the presentation, very good question there. What does your business need? Again, it depends on the type of work you do and the training you do, or if you do other consulting work, if you travel, and also finally what your clients require. But you can talk to a broker and they will help you establish what business insurance you need. How to get it is, again, to work through insurance brokers. There are ones that are specific for trainers out there, one called techinsurance.com that are, as an example, but there are others that help you with specific insurance that helps with IT training, technology training, and things like that. Just about any broker, though, I mean, that could be a sales pitch, just about any broker can provide insurance that will cover the basic needs that you would have for the types of work that most people on this call would do. Finally, leveraging third parties. You can't do this all on your own. You're going to need some outside help from time to time. I'm guessing some folks here probably already have an attorney. If you're uncomfortable reviewing contracts or you're worried about them, you can grab an attorney and get a couple hours of their time to do an initial contract review. I think one of the best things you can always have in your back pocket is an attorney that's good and trusted to help you with those types of things. Obviously, accounting, if you're unfamiliar with doing things like QuickBooks and FreshBooks and others, you can leverage getting an accountant to help you with it. Finally, there are a lot of software tools out there to help you run your business. FreshBooks, QuickBooks, one called Harvest, all of which are online in the cloud, helping you do billing, invoicing, collections. You still have to manage your own business, so you're still doing all the stuff you would take to own and run and administer a business, but there are software tools, payroll services, and things to help you with it. Finally, you can outsource all of it and focus only on your work, which is what MBO does, where you take all of those things that you would typically do yourself and outsource them through a third party like MBO to do not just contract work, not just accounting, or not just providing software or business insurance, but to provide the entire back office support in one package. So that's it for the presentation. We've had some really good questions so far. If you have some additional questions about anything we talked about or things that may be off the radar that you were always wondering about how to run your business or your practice, please throw them out there. We'll get those questions here and aggregate them here in a few minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a quick overview of MBO Partners and how we work with folks like yourselves in administering and managing your business. As I mentioned earlier, our mission is to make it easy for self-employed workers and their clients to work together. It's our only mission. For independent workers, and again, among our population, probably 15 to 20% of the folks that use MBO are trainers, either full-time or part-time. So it isn't work that's applicable for you. We take everything about being independent you love. So being your own boss, picking your own work, setting your own rates and engagements, working on multiple projects, and even building project teams, if you hire other trainers. And helping you maximize your tax benefits and those write-offs that we talked about. But what we add in is a complete back office support. So all the work that you would do on Saturday, we do for you. Invoicing, billing, collections, contracting, all of that is packaged up when we handle it for you. We improve your cash flow. We have tools to help you improve the way you receive cash from your customers, how you divvy it out, and also help with calling your customers to collect cash for your engagements. We provide group benefits, health insurance, life insurance, disability, 401k, all the things that you would have to set up on your own as an independent worker. If you self-incorporated, we've already set up for you so that you can tap into them only if you need them. You're covered under our business insurances, general liability, errors and omissions, crime bond. It's already included in the services that we provide, so you don't have to purchase them separately. Personal account services. We assign business managers to each one of you that joined MBO and help you manage all of the affairs that you have for your business so you don't spend the time doing them. Finally, we have our own online tool primarily geared towards the investment or the work that you do with your clients. We track it all on an online system. Very similar, if you think about how TTA Connect helps you get with TTA and go through engaging with their customers to get work, we have one to help you track all the billing and payments and taxes and collections and expenses that you have, and you can see it all through one place. So we're really kind of the online banking tool, if you will, for all the activities that happen through your consultancy. We call our service MBO Exec, and it's really a business operating system solution in the cloud. We have complete infrastructure. We do this for roughly 5,000 people every week. We've had over 30,000 people use this process, so it's very tried and true. We have instant Fortune 500 supplier credentials. So when you go to work with any companies, and we have agreements with large companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Hewlett-Packard, you can already start to work on those. We already have contractual arrangements with lots of Fortune 500 companies. We help you with your contract negotiation. So if you have a contract with, again, most of the work you do through TTA has already been contracted, and they've really done a lot of that heavy lifting for you already. However, when you have clients outside of TTA, we help you with the contract negotiation and provide the liability coverage those customers need. And as I mentioned, to get executive-style benefits through the health insurance and retirement plans that we have. We limit your liability. So most people that go into business for themselves set up a corporation so that they're protected, their assets are protected. By joining MBO, you automatically get that limited liability the same way you would as if you set up your own company. You get lender attractiveness because everything is run through MBO. You get one tax statement from MBO, and it makes it very easy for you to get paid or mortgages and other kinds of loan, which are typically more difficult as an independent vendor. We have fairly minimal service fee. Our folks can go through it, but basically we take 5% as our service fee, and that reduces to 1.5% at $125,000 of billing. So we think that you would spend that much typically just buying business insurance. So our fee really covers not only your business insurance, but everything else that you would have to spend. You can grow a business with an MBO, adding additional workers, finding additional clients. So we help you grow your business as well as not just manage it. And finally, making you compliant. You know, there's a lot of IRS and Department of Labor regulations around being an independent contractor. In some places like California and Massachusetts, it's very difficult to do business as an independent worker. And MBO provides the level of compliance that you need so that you can do business in any state. And we are accepted to do business in every state. We do help with a lot of the expenses and cash flows so that we make the write-offs a lot easier. I won't go into great detail today, but just doing your taxes and doing your business write-offs through MBO is a lot easier than working typically through an accountant or doing it online through a software product. We do multi-state withholding, so if you work in different states, we have all of the reciprocity laws baked into our process so that you don't have to worry about the multi-state withholdings, and that includes sales tax. So we make sure that if your clients require sales tax, in any state you do business with, that sales tax is charged for. Cash budgeting, management, and advancement tools, tax benefits like the business write-offs, billable expenses and non-billable expenses processed through MBO. And finally, maybe the biggest thing is we reduce audit fear. The likelihood of being audited when you use MBO is drastically reduced in comparison with doing it yourself. I've already mentioned the group benefits, which include medical insurance through Aetna and dental, retirement program through Fidelity, financial advisors that provide advice for free through our tool, long-term disability and life insurance. So those of us, myself included, who come out of corporate America who are unfamiliar with being independent, a lot of the perks that we have look a lot like those that you were used to having when you're a full-time employee for a company. And finally, with supplier qualifications, contract negotiations, the insurances that we provide, and also in terms of contract negotiations, some of the reducing the liabilities that you would have is what our expertise is in. So helping you do business even with the largest companies and gaining the qualifications you need to do it from a business perspective. And the one thing I can't say highly enough is we have expert business managers who help you navigate getting new engagements, negotiating contracts, getting them set up, doing the collections for you. This is not a call center type arrangement. You're working with a team of folks who have been doing this type of work for years with folks just like you. So they know exactly how to negotiate and navigate doing business with your clients from the administration, the invoicing, collections, and payment. Again, the system helps you manage all of that. And finally, we have independent contracting guidelines. There's tools within our system that help you find additional engagements, that counsel you on how to network, how to market yourself, and how to find additional work. Because obviously that's beneficial for MBO. The more work that you do through MBO, the better off we are. So we want to help you find additional work or engagements, whether it's with our current clients or outside of that group. So that's it. That's our mission, is to make it safe and easy for self-employed professionals to work together. We are going to have a poll here in a minute about whether you're interested in hearing more about MBO. Which we'll be able to throw up on your screen here in a minute. So for those of you who are interested, we can get you on our mailing list. Or if you'd like to talk to somebody, we have representatives standing by. So we have folks that can talk to you about whether our service would be appropriate for you. Check the talk box. You can do both. So if you can check the box and have somebody give you a call or send you an email to schedule an appointment, and also you can be on our mailing list as well. So just take a moment to do that. While we're doing that, I'm going to go through and start on some of the questions. So we'll just leave that poll question up while we go through some of the questions. Just going through these quickly. The cost of our service is, as I mentioned, was 5% of billing. So the way that works is if you charge $100 an hour, we would take $5 an hour, and then the rest of it would go into your business center for you to take as payments or to buy benefits or to write off. And again, that caps at $125 and then goes down to 1.5% at that point. There's some specific questions about what each benefit costs. I'm going to defer those because it depends on your circumstance. We have different benefit options for different folks. So for those of you who are asking questions about MBO's benefits specifically, I'd prefer that if you talk to one of our folks or go to our website, you'll see some of the different options and you're able to figure them out. But they're be kind of hard to go through them in detail. Do we organize meetings for people who join MBO? What we actually do is we do a couple things. We have, first of all, partnerships with various organizations like TTA is a great example that help you find additional engagements. So while TTA is a great opportunity for you to find engagements, we have other avenues for you to do it, different marketplaces. We have client relationships. And also for networking with our own associates, we have multiple venues. We have in-person meetings in different cities, New York, Washington, D.C., San Francisco periodically. And also through our social networking, we have tools that you can network with other MBO associates to help both find work and also navigate your own independent career. Many of the folks, finally, we have a group that is our advisory committee who've been with MBO for a while, and they help folks actually navigate both the MBO arena, but also independent consultancy in general. Is there any conflict of interest in working both with MBO and TTA? Not at all. Actually, MBO and TTA, we do different things. MBO is not in the business of finding you work. We're really your advocates for helping you manage the clients that you find, whether they be through TTA or through other organizations. So think of TTA as the one helping you get work, and MBO as being the ones that help you do invoicing, payment, collections, your accounting, your business insurance. We prefer to be vanilla in that way so that you can go out and find different engagements. Different software that we would recommend to help track expenses, mileage. There's lots of them out there. I mentioned a couple: FreshBooks, QuickBooks, Harvest. There are, there's Concur for expenses, which might be a little more than you're willing to bite off. But there are lots of different ones out there. I mean, if you go to your Google machine and you'll get a long list of them in the first 2 pages, which are the primary vendors that you would find that do that. And again, if you join MBO, we do all that expenses tracking for you and keep it compliant with IRS guidelines. The payment schedules that we have with our clients, which include TTA, are all contractual. So for example, the way, if you're doing work with TTA today, the payment schedule you would have with MBO would be exactly the same if you were a member of MBO versus being paid directly by TTA. What resources can we recommend to help you identify how you should bill for services? That's a really great question. How much do you charge for the work that you do? First of all, you can come to our website. We have resources within our world that help you do 2 things. One is research what your discipline is. If you're an IT consultant and you do have certain knowledge of .NET or different types of architecture, either through MBO or some other locations that we point to, you can find, prevailing rates in those areas. Finally, we also have a bill rate calculator. If you know what kind of income you would like to make at the end of the year, you can plug those numbers into our bill rate calculator, which will tell you how much you need to charge to accommodate for your health insurance, how much you want to put towards your retirement, how much it's going to cost for workers' comp, and it puts all that into an equation and a calculator. It's a very robust calculator to help you calculate the bill rates that you would need to charge. And that also is given that you may work variable hours. So it doesn't assume you're going to work full time. It just depends on the number of hours that you plan to put in. I'm trying to look through some of the questions that we've got here. Are we a Microsoft Gold partner? So MBO is not how do I say this? We don't, as a company, have levels of support that we provide. It's really what our associates do. We do, in fact, have individuals that work through MBO who have different types of certifications that they have, and they can publish those either through their own website, through their LinkedIn profiles, and things like that. So MBO doesn't possess those certifications, but the individuals that use MBO do frequently have them. Seeing if there's any other questions here. For the contract terms to sign for MBO, it's actually, you do not have a length of service. You can join MBO, use it for 1 contract, and quit. So really, it's a service that you can try before you commit long term. And even those that have used us for 15 years, they may take a full-time job, go away for a year, decide they didn't like it, come right back. So this is a service, MBO service is one you can come in and out of as you see fit. So there's no commitment month to month. We do have a strong, one of the questions is, do we have a strong presence in the healthcare industry? Actually, we do. Not to go too deep into it, but we have relationships, with some major companies like Microsoft, HP, Amazon, where we help them engage their independents and provide the service we talked about for the consultants they work with. So in the healthcare industry, we work with United Health Group, we work with WellPoint Health, we work with Logistics Health, we work with a number of large enterprise in the healthcare field and have specific services that we provide to those companies to help them engage independent workers within that space. So for those of you who are, in fact, in the healthcare space, yeah, we have a lot of expertise working with healthcare organizations. Finally, we recommended applications to track expenses mileage. We got that one. Expenses that examples of interfaces you can use for recording receipts and expenses. You know, I'm not remembering it correctly, but there's one, Neat Receipts, I think it used to be called, that will help you take pictures and record receipts and expenses and gather them up for you, specifically for, you know, recording your receipts and expenses. I think, again, it's called Neat or Neat Receipts. How long has MBO been around? We've been around for 25 years, actually. We started as a very small cottage industry for independents, by independents. A number of years ago, our current CEO, his name's Gene Zano, bought the company a few years back, has been instrumental in helping invest and grow the business to the point where it is now, where we've processed over $1 billion for independent consultants, and roughly $300 million every year of billings for our consultants. There's a question, if you have two businesses, do you need two accounts with the MBO? No, we would manage everything through a single account. And if you talk to one of our reps, they'll kind of walk through how it looks and how it's set up. They also give you a cash estimate, so they can actually walk through and show you when you work through MBO, here's how the cash flow works, and give you some cash examples that will help you show exactly what it would mean to join MBO. I think that just about covers all of our questions. There's a slide, the slide I should have had up there. Listen, I want to thank everybody for getting on the webinar. Great questions today. I hope the material was a benefit to you. We'll be doing additional webinar. A big shout out to the folks at TTA for helping us establish it. While TTA is a new partnership, they've been really great to work with. We've got rave reviews from the people we've talked to about how they handle setting up the training programs and finding y'all engagements to work on. So we look forward to doing more work with both TTA, the organization, and obviously the folks on this call and others today. Thanks again, and we'll be sending out this information shortly. Thanks again.